Today we're here to honor women in business real estate. We're joined here by Desiree Patno, National Association of Women in Real Estate. Desiree, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Desiree, we're talking about women in business and real estate in particular. Can you tell us, to start with, what is real estate?
Real estate is an embodiment of so many different aspects. We call it the housing continuum here at the National Association of Women in Real Estate Businesses. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure that everyone understands there's more to real estate as being a realtor, okay? You have residential, commercial, industrial, and retail. You have components within each one of those, and residential is broken up title services, which you're an owner, a woman-owned business.
Right.
Thank you very much. We also have auxiliary services that are insurance companies, contractors, CPAs, attorneys, all that make up the residential section. In addition, then you've got commercial side, you've got the industrial side where you manufacture. Those are all part of anything that's transferring real property is what we like to consider the housing continuum, okay? So the idea is that when you look at that, there are so many different avenues that when we talk about the halo of the housing continuum in real estate, we're talking probably a good 50-60% of the industries that are out there in the industry right now.
That there's a lot of men in the industry and women are getting more and more into the business. Mm-hmm. What is the advantage of women owning their own business?
Great question. Owning their business in real estate, the housing continuum, is there are now allocations that are set up by the federal government. And they've been there for many years, but it hasn't been like the forefront that's been well known, okay? And what they are is you have the HUB zone, mm-hmm. you have the veterans, service disabled veterans, you have the minority and women-owned. And the women-owned is such that it's set up that you have to be a women-owned business and 51% own, operated, managed. And it's now come in the last 2 years, especially in 2016, we're seeing a lot more diversity inclusion, that it is the forefront of what's happening. And that's what NAWRB is all about, is bringing the forefront to accountability and results for women in business. So with real estate, you look at it and you say, well, there's so many real estate agents, there are more women than men, okay? You look at there's so many different avenues that, escrow companies, there's 85% at least that are women-owned in escrow.
Especially in Southern California, as we have independent escrow here.
Absolutely, and the rest of the United States doesn't have most of that, which you know and very
right.
familiar with. And that's a big impact, because by not noting your services, because people don't realize how important that component is. And in women ownership, in that avenue, we really understand those different elements in real estate, because it's very personal, it's very emotional buy usually, especially in the residential side. And I think that the women bring a whole different element. And so the cool thing is that, dates me, is that it brings back the aspect of what we have going on in our industry, that we're really embodying what it's there for women to own their own companies.
So with that said, I have heard, and when I am engaging with women in business, as you said, there is a lot of women agents that are, and one of the things that I always hear them is having challenges with being able to have access. You mentioned government contracts, opportunities now that the government is offering, and them not being able to access that. I know that that's part of your advocacy and trying to explain. Can you talk a little bit about what are the challenges that you are seeing that women are facing getting into those opportunities?
One is access to capital. The SBA, which we're celebrating, has done a phenomenal job in providing access to capital. They actually ran out of money last year, first time ever. And
wow.
And they were able within 3 weeks refund it. So to give out billions of dollars has just been phenomenal in that aspect for the information for the Small Business Week.
There's a lot of facilitation for women to start in business going through the SBA.
Absolutely. And the beauty of that is that there's programs out there that are set up for free, that you can go get the advice how to set up your business, how to allocate your business plan, where you start your building your relationships, and having a mentor to walk you through those procedures and connect you to the very essence of the people who are looking for, or you can train under to start your own business and doing that. And in real estate, it's very interesting is that, we look at virtual reality, we look at brick and mortar buildings, we look at, global, we talked about, how that impacts us. And the idea is that you can actually start a business in your home in real estate much easier than you can start a lot of other businesses.
That is true. So where should women start? So you said small business, but where should they start to be able to access this capital?
The most important thing, I think, is they need to look to different trade associations to understand what they have to offer. Personally, I would go to every local event that is to find the dynamics of what they're about for the trade associations, whether that be part of the SBA, their auxiliary arms, which is a small business development center, whether that be the SCORE, which are the retired executives. They have 14,000 countrywide, and those are the Fortune 500 companies that they've retired to now work for, that want to do this just in their spare time because they enjoy giving back to the community. Or the women business centers that are out there. There's 110 of them across the United States.
Isn't it also that if they just go and talk to their banker about this small business, that they can start their process through there? Because I think that a lot of women don't realize that the Small Business Administration is not a bank. It's really an auxiliary to be able to get capital, but they still give access to that capital through the banks. So the banks participate on it, and I think that a lot of women don't know that, or probably a lot of the public does not know that the access to capital still comes through the banks, but it's a program that the banks offer in connection with the Small Business Administration.
Right, absolutely. The thing about going to the bank first is that you have to have a business plan. They're not going to give you a loan unless you have your business plan in place. And by going to the SBA and by going to trade associations to figure out what their niche is and how they can help you. And you have to have, it's like no matter what kind of loan you get or what kind of capital you get, you have to show that why you're starting that business and what you're doing with that business. And I believe that that relationship is that you're going to find it because there's with technology today. There's so many what do I want to say resources of information that you get overwhelmed, data overload. And the idea is that our friends will tell you how to do it, where to do it, why you should do it this way or that way, and you get spread so thin that you lose the direction. Sure. And so if you put it together and have a focal point of why you're doing something and have someone sit you down and say, okay, are you sure you're on track? Be like a personal trainer to make sure your goals are set and you continue on that goal path. If something can give you accountability, it's so much better.
Great. Well, sounds like it is much simpler, but at times it gets convoluted by not understanding. And it sounds like a National Association of Women in Real Estate, your firm, really can assist with that, which is another place where women can allocate to.
Absolutely.
I know that you do an outreach national, so there is access if any woman like to reach out to you. But going on that, once you start your own business and you have your business, let's go back to government access. Once that women has been established and it's running their business, and now they like to get some opportunity to work with government contracts. What is the first steps that they should take?
For access to getting government contracts, the number one thing is they got to determine what they have to sell and who wants to buy what they have to sell. So the idea is that there's so many different arms in the federal government place. There's so many different services, there's so many different divisions, so many different agencies. So they have to determine what agency they want to go after based on what they're selling and what they have to sell to them.
Do they have to have some kind of certification to prove to the government that they're certified, that they are women, that they're minority?
Very excellent question. There are third-party certifications, there are small business certifications, there are different utility company certifications, there's different protocols for certification for women-owned businesses and other business classifications. If we're talking about small businesses, the Small Business Administration themselves does self-certifying. You can check a box and go with it. They also offer 4 different agencies that do the certification that are in there. And the idea is that by having you have 10 documents that you need to submit to the small business, and they're doing some changes right now. But the idea is that you want to have validation that you are a small business. You want to have validation that you are a woman-owned small business or underutilized in economic disadvantaged small business certification, or you want to write down that you're a woman-owned business. So this is not just for when we talk about women-owned business. We're not talking about just small business. You got the very small, you've got and non-small. And the idea is just having that women-owned business certification, whatever level. So it's very important when you talk about federal contracting, what they're looking for, and having someone else other than saying you yourself that you're a woman-owned business.
I understand. So, with that said, what would you suggest to encourage women to participate more on the availabilities that is out there for them?
I think the most important thing is collaboration. Right now is that there's so many different women's organizations and so many different little pockets out there, and one of the things that NAWRB really strives for is getting the communication and collaboration efforts across the different housing continuum. You've got several that are just into title services that you know, some are that are just into attorneys, or several that are into the brokerages, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And the beauty
Right.
is that you've got to connect the dots. And if we're in escrow or we're in a transaction, we'll call it on a national level, and you're buying something, and one component doesn't facilitate and do their job, the whole deal falls apart.
Right.
So I think as women, we have to collaborate and keep our business model going, and we're very much hands-on. We're very much under risk takers. We really dot our I's and cross our T's. So the idea is that by making sure we partner up with those other organizations and other entities, that we know that we have our network that we can count on when we need that, when we're there, and because in our industry, as you know, compliance issues have overlaid our processes, and you never know when things are running smooth and boom.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because you're absolutely right. One of the things is our industry has become very regulated for good reasons, but with that, it has also come upon of how small businesses can compete with any regular business out there with the regulations. There is a lot of vetting going on. There is a lot of misunderstanding and as to how they need to play part to be able to participate in that. Mm-hmm. Because of it, it seems, and when I say misunderstanding, I think that there is misunderstanding from the large business to the small business, to who handles the liability, who carries what, and because of it, seems that there is a lot of, for lack of a better word, right-sizing of small businesses in the real estate industry, which is it creates such an impact for our nation, and not just nationally but globally if we want to think at that level.
So thank you very much for joining us, and I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. See you in our next section.